We've been talking a lot about CHOP. If you don't know what CHOP is, it's going down in Seattle, and I say this every single time I bring up the word Seattle. I always say this, and I mean it with all sincerity from the bottom of my heart. Seattle was. I lived in Seattle for a very brief period of time, and it was one of the most the unhappiest. The only time in my life where I actually considered taking antidepressants. I hate Seattle. I will never go back there. People there are passive aggressive. They all dress like Kurt Cobain. People are living on top of each other. It's very expensive. The weather is just the worst. You want to talk about the worst weather? It is freezing cold in Seattle, and it is like
it's freezing cold in here right now, Brian.
45 degrees and rain. You know what that feels like when it's like 35, 40 degrees and rain coming on top of you every day? It makes you miserable. It makes you miserable.
Sounds like Omaha, Nebraska, 9 months out of the year.
That's why I don't live in Omaha, Nebraska.
That's why I don't either.
Yeah, but
anymore.
Seattle is the worst. I hate it. They drink their lattes. They think they're all cool. They all look like Kurt Cobain. They're all snooty. Oh, trust me, I know. I live there. I know how people are in Seattle.
Is it worse than Venice Beach was?
150% worse. First of all, the weather is
that's true.
Is
okay.
fantastic.
I mean the people.
What do you mean? What bothers you about the people in Venice?
It's very, very chaotic there.
Chaotic?
Chaotic, lack of courtesy. I had someone almost run me over with their bike.
Oh, geez. Sorry about that.
So is it worse in Seattle?
Well, Seattle's a lot bigger than Venice, California.
You know what I mean. I'm talking L.A., Venice.
All right, well, let me be clear. I will take Venice, California in a heartbeat over Seattle.
I did enjoy the weather. I will admit that.
Seattle is the worst. Anyway, so as you know, they got this place called CHOP. It's this Capitol Hill Occupied Protest. That's what it stands for. And, they're taking over 6 blocks. They don't want police there. So with no police,
down to 3 blocks, Brian.
Now it's down to 3, so I guess they compromised. So the Harborview Medical Center down there confirmed that they received a 17-year-old patient with a gunshot wound to his shoulder around 11 p.m. over the weekend. His condition at the time of admission was serious. Then he was transported. But the interesting part about this story is that this isn't the first time this has happened. This comes in the wake of an early Saturday morning shooting inside a shop that saw a 19-year-old man die after being transported to Harborview in critical condition. Also, a 33-year-old victim from that shooting remains in intensive care at Harborview as well. Suspects in either weekend shooting have yet to be identified. So here's my issue with this, right? You can't have it both ways.
And Brian, there was actually 2 more shootings beyond that. There's been 3 shootings.
I just named 2 of them, and you're right. There was another one.
There's one. I've been this morning at 5 a.m.
I've been very clear on my thoughts on these people. I think they're a bunch of idiots. I think that we need police in society in every facet, shape, or form. And quite frankly, I feel very uncomfortable being in any area in this country where I can't call 911 and call for help because things do happen. And that's why I wouldn't be comfortable going to this thing. The interesting thing is when this last shooting happened, or the first one, I apologize, what happened in this shooting is that they didn't want the police to show up, but they asked for firefighters and medical personnel. Well, guess what? You can't have it both ways. Either you get police there or you don't.
Actually, Brian, it was worse. So they had this guy, this 19-year-old guy. By the way, his name is Lil Mob. He's a rapper in Seattle. Apparently, it was
Lil Mob.
Lil Mob.
What is it with all the Lils?
Yeah, there's a lot
Lil
of
Bow Wow.
Lil Wayne.
What is it with that?
Lil Yachty.
By the way, Lil Wayne is a complete moron. Not to change the subject, but I met him. He's got a lot of money. Very successful.
Very talented.
Yeah, but I met him at one of these Mayweather fights. He is very stupid.
Yeah.
Not a very smart guy.
I've never met Lil Wayne. I have met T.I.
He has nice gold teeth.
T.I. was a very nice guy. I enjoy talking to
Nice
T.I.
gold dentures. Very nice.
I'm sure he has those. But this Lil Mob was shot, and when police tried to get there, they were prevented from being able to help this guy when he was shot. The people inside the CHOP or the Chaz or whatever you want to call it, the anarchist village, they literally tried to stop these police officers from giving this guy attention after all this took place. And then they blamed
the part I don't understand.
And then they blamed the EMTs. They blamed the medics, right. Raz Simone.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Who's the warlord who was selling who actually wasn't selling, but he was literally handing out AR-15s to teenagers out of his Tesla last week. But Raz Simone blamed the medics for not getting there quick enough.
Okay, well, here's what I don't understand, and I have a feeling you're going to agree with me on this one, okay? This is the part of this whole thing that I don't understand, from the mayor all the way down. Everybody that is allowing...
She should be arrested.
Everybody, hold on. Everybody that is allowing me to, or is allowing them to be in this CHOP 3 blocks now, was 6 blocks. I don't understand this. Why don't you treat these protesters, or whatever they are doing, as you would treat, for example, the protesters that were pushed out of the way so Donald Trump could have his photo op with a Bible? It's very simple. You tell them they must leave, police show up, and if they don't leave, you tear gas them and you fire hold on, let me finish. You tear gas them and you fire rubber bullets at them. And for those people that are still there, you give them about 5 minutes. If they are still there, you arrest them.
Brian, it's
very simple.
Here's why. Now, Mayor Jenny Durkin did say last night that after the summer of love has not been a summer of love, and she admitted that CHOP is a different place during the day, but it's something totally unique at night. It's not what we think it is during the day at night. But she did say that she is going to make an effort to disband this CHOP now. But the reason that they don't do that is because they actually signed an ordinance 2 weeks ago. The city did, that prevents police officers from using rubber bullets and tear gas and pepper balls. That's why.
Okay,
that's why you literally the police.
Well, then my question is, how else do you get them out of there?
Police, and that's the whole point. You think they're going to leave peacefully? And a lot of them are armed.
Well, then
you think they're going to leave peacefully? And by the way, yesterday they started what's called a segregation area. It's an all African American area guarded by Caucasians that if you are not African American, you cannot go into within the CHOP. That happened yesterday.
Well, the government there, the local government, is trying to negotiate their way out of this. They obviously, not only do they somewhat support of what's, at least during the day, what's going on there, they obviously don't want any violence. Like you said, some of these people are armed. So
a lot of them are armed.
It's a big mess, and that's it. They're trying to negotiate their way out of it at this point.
All right, so two issues here that I want to talk. First of all,
and by the way,
let me just say two issues quick that I want to talk about here. First of all, I don't like the Republican narrative that this is what Joe Biden wants. This is what the Democrats want. It's a ridiculous narrative.
I mean, it's hard to argue right now, Brian.
It's easy to argue because it's wrong. There's not one prominent Democrat. I'm not talking about the mayor of Seattle. There is not one prominent Democrat that you could name me that wants this to happen in every city coming to you. That is not factually accurate, but if you watch Fox News and some of the late-night ridiculous shows that they have on there, the Laura Ingrams of the world and the Tucker Carlsons of the world will lead you to believe that this is the Democratic narrative and that Joe Biden and all these prominent Democrats want these same things to happen in every city across the country. Okay, so let me be very clear on this. That could not be further from the truth. It's just like the narrative defunding the police, where Joe Biden came out and he said, I am not for defunding the police. He did it right away, but yet people out there still say that Joe Biden wants to defund the police.
But here's the reason. Joe Biden has been flip-flopping on issues before, and Kamala Harris, who is most likely going to be his VP, did actually express support for defunding the police, Brian. So right now, anytime you're talking about defunding the police, and you realize what's happened in New York. So last week, they disbanded the anti-crime unit. There was 24 shootings on Saturday alone. There's 60 shootings last week in New York City. The year before, there was only 12. I've seen countless videos of people in New York just committing hate crimes. I'm talking African Americans to Caucasians. Hate crimes on a consistent basis. Hate crimes all over the country are up, especially in areas where there's not a lot of police presence, Brian. So yeah, right now people, they are thinking, if you're talking defunding the police, they're thinking things like what happened in Chaz and Chop. And now there's also a copycat situation that happened in D.C. Last night, Black Lives Matter protesters, they were trying to take down a statue of Andrew Jackson. And they defaced the St. John's Church again, and they tried to start what's called a Black House Autonomous Zone 1.2 miles away from the White House. Riot police were called out, SWAT was called out, nothing took place. But then Donald Trump this morning, he said he's going to sign an executive order forcing cities and states to protect their monuments and their statues nationwide. And also, under the Veterans Memorial Preservation Act, he is going to give 10 years to anyone who was caught defacing or removing any statue in the United States. So that just happened about 2 or 3 hours ago.
Okay, so let me respond.
So all this stuff that's gone on,
all right. So
it is going to be taken care of very swiftly. I expect there to be a lot of 10-year sentences issued in the next couple of weeks.
So I didn't get to finish my point. In regards to Joe Biden, nothing what you just said has anything to do with Joe Biden. Joe Biden has come out and said that he is not for defunding the police. He has also come forward and said he does not agree with, no police presence in Seattle. He doesn't agree with that either. And the point I was trying to make,
I have not seen him say that,
He
Brian.
did say that.
Okay,
he doesn't agree with no police areas. He has been on the record as saying that in the last several days. And the idea that Republicans want to shape Joe Biden or the majority of Democrats out to be people that want to see what's happening in Seattle happen throughout the country, want to condone violence. That's just it's what I'm trying to say is it's a lie. It's not true. And Joe Biden has said it himself. The fact that you mentioned, well, Joe Biden has flip-flopped before. I don't know exactly what in regards you're referencing to, but I will say this. There is not one politician in office that hasn't changed his mind on any one given specific issue. The bottom line is that Joe Biden came out and he said it himself. He's not for defunding the police. So now that we can put that to bed, I also want to say this on the other side.
You can't put that to bed because Kamala Harris, his VP.
Kamala Harris is not his VP. That is also not factually
she's very.
accurate.
It's down to her and Susan Rice.
Okay, well,
and
she's not his VP.
I am fairly certain that Kamala Harris is going to be his VP. So I'm considering her as VP.
Right. Okay, that's fine.
But Kamala Harris went against. She went for defunding the police.
We're not.
And so, considering Joe Biden's mental state of just his mental state and his physical health, it is not unreasonable to assume that Kamala Harris will be the president of the United States if Joe Biden is to win the president of the United States.
What are you saying? Joe Biden's going to die?
I'm saying I think there is a very good chance that Joe Biden does not even finish out half of his term as president.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Based on the fact
Can you
that
name me any other?
he can't even really express his own opinions.
We're both not doctors. I'm not going to make an assumption that Joe Biden is going to die any more than I would say Donald Trump is going to die. What I will say and ask you is this. Can you name me 5 or 6 other prominent Democrats that are for defunding the police, please?
I am much more concerned with the Vice President of the United States.
She is not the Vice President
I'm
of the
much more
United
concerned
States.
with what I would consider to be the Vice President candidate of the United States, her opinion as opposed to the prominent
narrative,
Democrats.
What I was specifically referencing is that the narrative on the right on many of these
Keisha Lance Bottoms.
If I could just finish, she's not a prominent Democrat. She's a mayor of a city.
She's also being considered as Vice President of the United States.
She's a mayor of a city, and you've only named 2. But with that being said, the narrative on the right by some of these wacky talk show hosts on the right are saying that Democrats want to defund the police. I'm asking you specifically, can you name me more than 1 or 2 Democrats other than a mayor that wants to defund the police? It's a very simple question.
I just named arguably probably the second most important Democrat in the country after Joe Biden.
You think Kamala Harris is the second most important Democrat
if she's
in the country?
named Vice President or if she's named his VP candidate, and Joe Biden ends up president of the United States, then yes, Kamala Harris to me is the second most important Democrat in the country.
What about Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi? They don't count? You think Kamala Harris is the second most prominent Democrat in the? I'm sorry, I just disagree.
Well, that's
all right. So that's
you're
your
welcome to
opinion.
disagree, Brian. I'm saying if she's Vice President of the United States,
fine.
based on Joe Biden's physical health, and I've said this 4 times now, I shouldn't have to say it for a 5th.
We've gone after.
But if it's her, then there's a really good chance, in my opinion, based on what I've seen from Joe Biden, the fact that he hasn't been in public in 82 days.
All right, well,
and then you say
what are you talking about?
He hasn't
been in public in 82 days?
He has not been in public in 82 days, Brian.
That's wrong.
And Donald Trump.
Where did you get that from?
Just did 2 hours.
Who just told you that?
He just not.
Did somebody just tell you that?
Have you seen Joe Biden? No one just told me anything. What are you talking about, Brian?
I've been
looking at you the entire time.
Right, I will make a wager with you right now that that's not true. He
has not done anything in public.
Not true.
Where's he been?
Absolutely not true. He's talked in front of the media on a number of occasions in the last couple weeks. He's been in public. You're lying.
That's
not true.
That's in front of a television. I'm saying live.
What do you mean that's in front of a television?
I'm saying live in public. No one has seen Joe Biden.
That's not true. That's a right-wing nut job.
No, it's not. It's not.
That's not true.
Where has he been seen?
You want me to give you a list? Yeah. That's not true. Go ahead, Stein.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, he met with protesters in Delaware. He met with the family of George Floyd in Houston. We're under a pandemic. You can't have rallies in arenas.
All right, so here's
and I agree he's high risk.
I don't think you believe
he's not been locked away in a basement for 82 days. He's gone out. He's just being extremely cautious.
No, I literally think that Joe Biden's candidacy right now is elderly abuse. I literally believe that. I actually believe that. I think that if he does end up president of the United States, there is not a chance in hell that he will make any of his own decisions.
Let me be clear on this
because of how mentally messed up he currently is. And if Kamala Harris is his VP and she does support defunding the police, I think there is a very legitimate chance that that a good amount of the country will have their police defunded, their police departments defunded. Based on what's happened in New York and Minneapolis already, within less than a week, and what's going on right now with all these different racial crimes being committed, I think that people are scared of that. And if the Trump campaign is smart, he will use that as part of his campaign, and I think that he will.
I don't think you believe that
he has a fundraiser tonight with Barack Obama.
Yeah. So much for not being in public. And I don't know if somebody told you that, but let me say this. For anybody out there, and I'm not even saying if it's somebody told JD that or because If somebody told you,
What are you
or
talking
anybody
about, Brian?
listening is stating that Joe Biden has not made a public appearance in 82 days, you are a clown. That is not true. That is a lie. And it goes to what I was talking about earlier when I said many on the right want to paint all Democrats as people who want to defund the police and people that support the chop that is going on in Seattle. If you are one of those people, you are a clown with zero credibility. This idea and the Donald Trump narrative that Joe Biden is spending all the time in his basement is not true. Stein just mentioned just a few of the public appearances that he's made.
He has not held. He has not held a
true.
news conference in 82 days.
That is also not true.
It is true.
Oh, really? Would you like to make a $1,000 bet on the air right now that Joe Biden has held a press conference at least more than once in the last 82 days? Would you like
I said a news conference, Brian.
That's a press conference. A news conference, what's the difference? News conference, press conference. I don't know who's telling you that stuff. If somebody is telling you that, they're an idiot. Simple as that. It's not true. We can't say things on this show that's not true. That is not true. He's held press conferences in the last 82 days, which would be, almost 3 months. That's absurd.
He's been doing them virtually. He's been doing them virtually.
Yeah. But he also did them in person.
Where?
Which do you want to make a bet right now?
Meeting up with George Floyd's family is not holding a news conference.
No. But you
person.
said your first thing that you said was he hadn't been out he hadn't been seen in public in 82 days.
Okay, you're right. I was wrong on that. I'll admit I was wrong on that.
He's also held press conferences, and there's a video to prove that.
Show me. Show me one.
Okay.
Show me one.
Sure.
You love to do this.
Sure.
Show me one.
Absolutely.
Press conference, news conference that he has held in the last 82 days.
Absolutely. So here's what I'll do. I'll make
in public, not in his basement.
Sure. Fair enough.
Not in his home.
Sure. Okay. So
somewhere relatively in public. And
so
I understand.
I'm a man of my word.
I understand the pandemic is taking place.
I'm a man of my word.
Despite the fact that it's completely.
He's not doing in-person
taken out of
press
context.
conferences.
He's done a few, though.
That's true, but he has done some virtual ones.
He has done a few.
He hasn't done one.
Okay, so I'll make a $500 bet with you right now.
I'm not wagering with you.
You're
Brian.
not wagering, but you're just
I'm
going to stand by.
not dropping to your wage. Now, baseball is coming back. So
Did somebody tell you that? Be honest with me.
No one told me anything, Brian.
The 82-day thing?
I make my own decisions.
I'm just saying.
and I form my own opinions.
All right, well,
and the fact that
it's not an opinion. It's just you're wrong.
I'm not wrong, actually.
Okay, then let's make a bet then.
So I don't confirm it right now.
Then let's make a bet. I will make a wager with you right now that he has held media availability in public, not just in his basement, in the last 82 days. Because I've seen the audio bites, and I've seen some of the press conferences that he's done, and I've seen the audio clips.
Brian, I'm 99.9% sure.
All right, so let me ask
that those were virtual news conferences.
So fair enough. So
you're expecting Joe Biden, considering his current state of mind, his mental acuity right now, to be able to compete with Donald Trump in 3 debates on his way to the campaign, on his way to.
So now you're changing the subject.
No, I'm not. I'm not changing the subject.
All right. Well, so
I'm saying Trump just did a 2-hour rally a couple days ago. Yeah, walking off the plane. Did he take his tie off on the plane? Sure. Does that mean anything? Of course not. That means absolutely nothing. But you think that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are in the same level of health based on the fact that based on what you've seen. Trump. During the pandemic, Trump was in public every single day for an hour and a half, every single day standing up.
Biden talked about the U.S. economy at Delaware State University on June 5th.
There you go. I got another press conference I'm looking at right now. On June 5th, he did yes. So once again, the 99.9% of JD is wrong. I'm looking at a press conference right now on YouTube that he did on June 5th, which was not that long ago, where he answered questions from members of the media. He did it live. He did it in person. We're showing you video of it right now, which leads me to believe, once again, that you cannot say things like that are not true on the air when you say they're 99.9% false. You know why I wanted to make a bet with you? Because I knew I was right and I knew you were wrong. That's why. I don't make bets unless I'm pretty confident that I'm right.
Oh, you just feel good about yourself.
No, I just don't like it.
I don't have the same insecurity.
No, it's not about insecurity.
Anyways, I was incorrect, and King Brian was right. So how does that?
It's not about insulting me. I just get frustrated.
You feel pretty good about it.
No, I actually feel bad about it.
Lose the frustration.
I feel.
What's
bad
our next
about
topic?
I feel bad about it because I don't like it when you say things that are not true, and you just made the point for me. Republicans that want to paint all Democrats and want to say they all want to defund the police and they all are okay with this chop thing. It's not factually accurate. The idea, and where do you get something like that from? Well, the commander-in-chief who says Joe Biden's been in his basement for so-and-so amount of time. It's not true. It is a lie. And I don't like it when that false narrative is put out there. I'm not a huge Joe Biden supporter, but for God's sakes, this idea that he's just sitting in his basement is a lie. It is a false narrative, and it is not true.
Well, I think there's a distinction also, between Joe Biden, who's running for president, and the President of the United States. The President of the United States, for him to not have press conferences would be very, very strange. For a presidential candidate to not have press conferences in a pandemic is not as weird. Joe Biden has been extremely cautious, maybe more cautious than he needs to be, JD. You're right. Maybe he should be speaking to the public more. Maybe he should be doing more events as cautiously as he can. That may be true, but he has done some.
Yeah, and if you want it, that's a different argument. If you want to say that Joe Biden should be out there more, he should be out with the people more.
And this was Trump's first campaign rally, by the way, in many, many months because of the pandemic.
Right. That's another part of this. If
and I think that it should not have been outdoors. It should have been. I'm sure indoors. It should have been outdoors. But I wouldn't have gone if it was indoors.
But that's another part of this too.
Yeah, of course. But, and I guess you're right. He did go to Delaware State University. By the way, his house is in Delaware.
Oh, so what?
He traveled maybe 20 minutes to go do a very brief news conference. Okay, fine.
No, your point is that his political people are telling him the less you go out, the better.
Yeah, well, but
you know what?
I
don't necessarily disagree with that.
People are trying to hide Joe Biden, and the pandemic is helping Joe Biden because the less Joe Biden that the public gets to see, the better off Joe Biden is.
There are two ways of looking at it.
Absolutely correct.
There are two ways of looking at it from a political standpoint, from an election standpoint, from a political strategy standpoint. There's two ways to look at it. One, we better not put Joe out there because he's going to look senile and crazy, and the less we have of him, the better. The other thought is let Trump go up against Trump because right now it's Trump versus Trump and Trump's losing.
So here's why I disagree.
Let Trump implode on the pandemic and on the protests.
And by the way,
I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, JD. I'm saying if I'm a political strategist, those are the two things.
Okay, so
for him not being out.
Here's the thing: if the argument is we don't want the public to see him, then why has he done all the interviews all over the media? Why is he on CNN all the time? Why is he on MSNBC all the time? He's doing a bunch of interviews. So if you're going to say that they're trying to hide him, that's not not factually accurate.
That was me just supporting JD's.
Right. They are trying to hide him.
It's just not true.
They are trying to hide him, Brian. And the less the public sees of Joe Biden, the better off Joe Biden is.
All right. So you know what the campaign is doing. You know.
I've watched it. I've watched it take place.
Apparently, you didn't watch his press conference.
I think the campaign is content to let Donald Trump handle two crises simultaneously and let Joe Biden stay out of it. Okay. That's what I think politically what's happening.
All right. The idea that he's staying in the basement, the idea that the campaign is trying to hide him, there's no evidence to back that up. The guy has met with people. And by the way, the George Floyd situation, I think, was a very touching situation. What he and his wife did flying out to meet that family, he showed empathy. I thought that was great.
Hey, why do we not talk about Donald Trump meeting with Ahmaud Arbery's family and several other African-American people that have been died.
Because recently Ahmaud Arbery hasn't been in the news. George Floyd has been in the news, and that's why there's protests.
Well, no, I just think it's interesting that we didn't bring that up. That you talk about how touching it is that that Joe Biden met with the family of George Floyd, despite the fact that George Floyd was, by all accounts, a horrendous human being. But Donald Trump met with Ahmaud Arbery, who was not the person that George Floyd was.
So you're saying
he didn't stick a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach while her house was invaded. No, what I'm saying is Trump did something very similar. But we mentioned nothing about that on the show. You've given him no credit for that whatsoever.
You've never mentioned it once on the show. You've had the opportunity. You never mentioned it once.
I think I actually have mentioned it before.
You've never mentioned that once.
That actually did take place, and we've given him no credit for that.